So what made you want to get your WCW tryouts and WWE tryouts? What point did something switch in your head?
Well, I started working out again, and I guess the drug use was manageable to the point where I could work out again. Of course, I also started doing steroids at that point, and I was getting big, but I wanted to give it one more shot, and I did. I got those tryouts with both companies kind of back to back. Yeah, I thought I wanted to be. I had no business trying to come back though, because I was still really messed up. I don't think I could have managed living on the road with the road schedule that they were on, with the amount of drugs I was doing. So, and another thing, if I had been there when they quit drug testing, I'd probably been one of the first guys that died, because that's how crazy I was. During that time, I went to Germany for that season, and when I got back was when I started talking to them again, and I was talking to Bruce Pritchard, and this was one of the reasons I looked back and kind of wondered about Bruce. But Bruce said, I told Bruce, I said I wanted to take a shot at coming back, and he said, okay, that sounds good. We will, let me talk to everybody, and we'll set it up, and we'll bring you in. So I was still at home training, preparing, and Bruce had set me up a tryout date. I had to come back and try out again, which was interesting, but I was willing to do it. At one point, before the tryout came along, I got a call at home from Jim Ross. And Jim Ross said, we have an idea for you, but in order for this idea to work, you can't show up for the tryout. And we need you to get as big as possible. Now, I'm not telling you to do steroids, because that would be illegal, but you need to get as big as you can. That's what he said to me.
There was no testing during that period.
They had stopped testing probably about a year after I left. I remember Savio Vega called me at home, and he said they stopped drug testing. They sent out a memo saying it was not cost effective anymore, or something like that. It was too expensive to drug test people. So they stopped, and they would only test on a as needed basis, which is basically kind of letting the reins go with the boys, and that's when a lot of guys started dying too. But yeah, there was no testing then, so he didn't tell me to do steroids, because he couldn't do that, but he said I needed to get as big as possible. And then what ended up happening, I got a plane ticket in the mail for the tryout, and I didn't know what to do. I didn't know exactly what Jim Ross's position was at that time, which ended up he was like the main guy, as far as talent was concerned. But I called Bruce and said, Jim called me and said, don't show up for the tryout, but you guys sent me a ticket. What should I do? And Bruce Pritchard said, still come to the tryout. So I did. I still showed up for that tryout. Funny thing about the tryout, I also had a tryout at that time for WCW. They were like within a week of each other, maybe. It wasn't very far apart at all. And I just remember I was still talking to Steve Austin, and I was still talking to Bret Hart, and I asked them both for advice. What should I do? Bret Hart said you should do them both. Do both tryouts. That's the professional thing to do. Do both, go try out for both companies. Steve Austin, on the other hand, said you need to pick one. You need to choose who you would prefer to work with or for, and go do their tryout, because these are very vindictive people, and they will get pissed off and take it personally if you go do both. Well, unfortunately, I took Bret's advice, and I went and did both tryouts, and neither place called after that, of course. So,
who was your contact in WCW?
J.J. Dillon. It turned out to be J.J. Dillon, and Bret Hart was there. This was after the screw job thing, so I would still talk to Bret from time to time, and he always said he could get me booked, but he never did. But Well, I was kind of always too proud to ask somebody to get me booked too, anyway. But with WCW, what I had done was I just showed up at a TV taping one day, and it was interesting because I was wearing a suit and I just showed up. It was like in Tampa, Florida. They were doing Nitro, and I had moved up to Orlando to kind of pursue wrestling for WCW because they were doing the thing out of Disney or Epcot or whatever it was. I don't remember.
Yeah,
Universal.
Universal, yeah.
And I just showed up at this Nitro just on my own and walked in the back, wearing a suit. Nobody questioned me. And it was interesting that a lot of the people, a lot of the boys came up and were really nice and gracious to me and shaking hands and, hey, how you doing? Barbarian and came up and he was real nice. And Kevin Nash came up, was real nice that first night. Scott Hall came up, hey man, Big Show, he was the Giant then. He came up, I'd never met him before. He's like, hey, I liked your match with our mutual friend. He was talking about Triple H, and these people were coming up and making conversation. Well, it turned out that they were being nice to me because they thought somebody had brought me in. But nobody had brought me in, I just showed up. And J.J. Dillon came flying up and he came up to me and was talking to me and gave me his card. He said, I want you to call me at the office next week and we're going to see what we can do and yada, yada, yada. But then like the next couple days of TV, I showed up and everything changed. I think they realized nobody brought him in. So everybody wasn't so nice anymore. I found that to be very interesting. That was kind of a statement on how the politics behind the scenes work. People are nice to you when they think that maybe somebody brought you in and maybe you're going to get a push, but then when they realize no, that wasn't the case, then they just switch.
Then you came back. Was that after talking to JJ?
Yeah, it was after talking to JJ, but I showed up at, I don't remember what it was, what kind of taping it was. It was one of the other shows. I don't think they had Thunder at the time. At first I thought it was Thunder, but somebody corrected me on that.
Worldwide, maybe. They taped Worldwide.
I think maybe it was something like that, Worldwide. And
was it in Orlando?
well, it was in Central Florida. I think it was like Lakeland, Florida. Actually,
okay.
This one was in Lakeland, and I just remember that
Could have been WCW Saturday night, maybe.
it might have been. But the Giant, Big Show, he acted like he didn't even know who I was the second time. I thought that was funny as shit, actually. But, that's kind of the nature of the beast, man. That's how people are. There's a lot of arrogance and whatever in the business, and that was fine. But yeah, eventually I got through calling and talking to J.J. Dillon. I got that tryout match that apparently somebody found on the internet, but yeah.
You also said at one point you talked to Kevin Sullivan about idea. He told you to come up with some ideas.
Yeah, this was early on. As a matter of fact, I think before they brought me for a tryout, JJ sent me to talk to Kevin Sullivan, and it was at maybe the Universal thing. They did the Universal tapings. And I went in.
Those were the Worldwide tapings, just for anyone.
Right.
Yeah.
That's where they did the Worldwide?
Yeah.
So it was at that taping where it was a totally different set of people. You didn't see a lot of the Nitro guys on that Worldwide taping at Universal, but I sat down at one point with Kevin Sullivan and kind of hashed out some ideas. He wanted to see what I was thinking. And one thing I told him was I could still wrestle in some kind of semblance of the Garbage Man gimmick because that was mine. That was my intellectual property. It just couldn't be Duke the Dumpster. The rest of it was mine. And he didn't really like that. So the second idea I had was, and it was not my original idea, I'll say that, it was the old Macho Man gimmick where you come in, and I was going to come in as like a free agent and have different managers or maybe different factions or like the NWO or somebody, all these people looking at me and wanting to hire me for my services as a wrestler, doing that whole Macho Man free agent gimmick. And he sat back and he says, now that idea I like. And it was interesting. We talked about a few more things, and I ended up leaving. And then very shortly after that, I saw on I don't remember which TV show it was. It might have been Nitro, but it was when they brought Kurt Hennig back. And he came out, and one of the first things he said, I think it was Mean Gene Okerlund, interviewing him as he walked to the ring, he said, "I'm a free agent, and such, and yada, yada, yada." And I was just like, wow, you know. And I know it wasn't my original idea, but it's just interesting that they kind of went with that with somebody else. So at least I had good ideas, or the way I was thinking was good.